Hello, good evening. It's 8:32, 2 minutes late starting due to a small technical glitch. My name's Jeremy Webb. I am the artistic director of Neptune Theatre, and I should not be in charge of technology. It is a foolish thing, but there we are. We're in isolation. It's great to have you here. Thanks for being here. If this is your first time, you're in for a treat. It's our way of keeping in touch with you, our audience, our subscribers, our donors, our sponsors, and we have a lot of fun. We talk to people that either work at or have worked at or have some connection to Neptune Theatre and the work that we do. I'm particularly excited tonight because people often ask me, where does it all begin for you as artistic director when you're planning a season? Well, it begins with, of course, the scripts and the stories that we want to tell at our theater and probably most theaters. We have been blessed to have some amazing playwrights submit their scripts or have their scripts presented to us, and some of the playwrights from the past few years are with me this evening as guests. Let me bring them into the studio right now, and then we'll start to talk about their work. If you have any questions for them, you can indeed ask them. Just type in your question, and we'll see if we can get to as many as we can. Here we go. Let's bring in the guests. Technology is still working. Look at that. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Look at that. What is there a word? I'm asking the right people. Is there a word for a collection of playwrights? You know,
besides anthology? No, I don't think so.
An anthology of, that's not bad. There's a murder of crows.
We never get to gather, even outside the pandemic.
That's true. This is rare. This is nice.
I guess so.
It would be like a quiet of writers.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, beautiful.
I always thought. I wonder if I don't know how much punctuation. Yeah, well, no, quiet's good. I don't know how much punctuation really plays. I'll ask you later maybe about that. But if punctuation plays into it, I was thinking a semicolon of. No, I'm terrible. It's terrible.
No.
I'm just going to drink my gin and tonic and be quiet now for the rest of the evening. It's great to have you here.
We're an ellipsis. We're an ellipsis, maybe.
Ooh. Ellipsis?
+1?
Yeah.
There's 4 of us.
Yeah, I feel like I overuse ellipses sort of spiritually. You know?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I do that in my writing. Andrea Scott, Rose Napoli, Ellen Denny, Hannah Moscovitch. To have you all in the same virtual room is quite an honor. Thank you for being here. Like I said in my intro, you heard it twice because of the technical glitch. We have had the pleasure of having your work on the Neptune stages recently. I hope we do again. Before we begin talking about some of that work, let me just go around the room and check in with you all. How are you doing? Where are you? And what did I say I was going to ask you? I think I will ask you. Oh, yeah, the first place you're going to go. The first thing you're going to do, a place you're going to go when it feels totally safe to do so, when isolation is lifted. Where are you going to speed it to? Andrea, you go first.
Mine's going to be so boring. But first, I just want to know, if I look here, does it look like I'm looking at you?
Really
or should I do it, if I look like this, does it look like I'm looking at you? I'm confused.
No, it looks like, I've struggled with that too.
Or is it this? Or is it this? Is that better?
That's good.
Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is go to the gym.
Oh.
I go to the gym 5 days a week usually, so this has been bad for me. I have not enjoyed this at all. At all. Yeah.
No, I understand. And
gyms won't open until late August.
Oh, is that what you think? Is that what you know?
No, we got something. The government of Ontario sent something out talking about the 5 phases of opening, and gyms are phase 5 in August.
And I assume theaters are phase 7 or 8? Probably not even mentioned, right?
They didn't even mention us. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Rose?
Yeah, I guess I want to do something that's like probably phase 11. which is I really want to go to a baseball game.
That's
Oh.
phase 5.
Phase 5?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How can that be phase 5 and the theaters are phase 8? That doesn't make sense to me.
Oh.
Is it because
Well, great. Phase 5, I'll be going to see the Jays. That's what I love to do in the summertime.
awesome?
Awesome.
Are you both in Toronto?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Ellen, Denny.
I am also in Toronto. I think I really miss going to the thrift store, which might come up sooner than phase 5.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I'm craving a good thrift. And I had another one. Oh, to see some, I don't know, go to like a little hole in the wall bar and see some live jazz. I think that would be nice.
Nice.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, between you, you're all making a really perfect day. I think it would be, yeah. Okay. Hannah, what about you? Where are you and how you doing? And what would be your first thing?
I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia, in the North End, right by the Armory. I don't know, that it's hard. I feel like this is, I mean, there's a grim answer and then there's like a really ideal answer, like a beautiful answer. And the grim one is, I'd like to see my mom and dad because they're in their 70s,
Right.
and I've been scared about them and how they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I think like I want to go visit my mom and dad who live in Ottawa, and I kind of can't easily get there. We could drive, but it would be like a really long drive with a 4-year-old. And then we couldn't come back because then we would have to quarantine for 14 days, or we couldn't easily come back. So that, but also we planned a vacation to Costa Rica, and it's the first vacation that we had planned for 5 years, like since my son's birth. And I bought all these clothes online for it. And then the pandemic happened, and then the clothes started showing up. Like these gorgeous summer dresses and bathing suits and bikinis, like in the mail in like sad days of pandemic. So I think I would like to go to Costa Rica to with my family on vacation.
So you've been getting little Amazon packages of despair.
Like beautiful sun wraps and sunglasses and like gorgeous dresses to wear on the beach and bikinis, like really like a parade of sadness.
I suddenly, I really feel you. We were just saying the other night, Melissa and I, that we were just at the point of booking a summer vacation, and it was actually going to be taking the kids to Disneyland for the first time. And because I'm a big kid as well, and so that was the three of us and poor Melissa, but we didn't book it. We hadn't quite got to it, and then we started to get the inkling that something was coming down the pipe, so we didn't. So otherwise, yeah, it's tough. Okay, well, that's actually very sad, but you know what? You're going to get that vacation in 2021, right?
Hell yeah.
I hope Christian Barry is watching this and he's booking those tickets right now.
To his credit, he booked the whole vacation himself, the whole thing.
Oh, good for him.
I just bought it.
Awesome. All right. So I guess the thing I wanted to touch on first is writers, as you alluded to earlier, writers tend to be kind of quiet, isolated people when you're working, at least. When you're working on plays, one assumes.
Actually, I need to clarify, Jeremy. My boyfriend's become very concerned by the loud noises coming out of our spare room as I've been writing last week. So there's been fights erupting to the point that he thought something was very wrong, and then he realized it was just me.
What were you doing in there?
Well, as I write, I need to speak it out loud.
Oh.
Yeah. So
cool.
It got a little crazy, and I heard him recounting this on Zoom. He was like, "My girlfriend, there's strange noises coming from the spare bedroom. She sounds very upset, but and then I go to comfort her, but she's just writing."
Just writing.
Just writing. It's okay.
So, but is it kind of, is the is this pandemic isolation affecting your work? I mean, I think it's affecting all of us in a multitude of ways, but is it affecting your process, your work day as a writer? Or are you putting writing on hold right now? And I guess the third question is this little bundle of questions is it seeping into your work? Do you find yourself sort of, because when we emerge from this, the pandemic is this thing that we will have all shared. So I expect to see many plays in the next few years that are either on the subject or mention it at least. Andrea, what about you? Is it getting into your work at all, or your process?
Well, I mean, I was one of those people who, when it all started to happen, when like I was getting people saying, "Aren't you worried?" And I kept saying, "No, I'm not worried. I think that this will blow over by April, and I have a trip to Stratford, and I'm not canceling it. So no, I'm not worried about this at all." And it wasn't until like March 16th, March 17th that I realized that it was a bigger deal than I assumed it was. People were panicking. People were running around. Downtown Toronto was crazy. Grocery stores were crazy. It was awful. And I've just kept a level head about it because I don't panic. I'm not somebody who panics. And I was like, I don't really see any way of putting these in anything that I write. But as it's gone on and on and on, and we've seen economic collapse and 60,000 deaths and how it's impacting the Black community, I feel like it would be very difficult for me to write a play set 3 years from now, which I am, and not reference the pandemic. It wouldn't necessarily be about the pandemic, but I don't think you could write a play set in 2023 and not acknowledge what happened in 2020. So right. It would affect my play in an elliptical fashion, but it would not be about it.
Anyone else want to jump in on that?
I mean, I feel like there've been like layers of it. The first few weeks, it felt like anything that I'd been working on felt completely futile and immediately irrelevant. And so I was really trying to push through on projects that I was, some of them that we ended up workshopping over Zoom, and I sort of felt like, why are we doing this? And then something happened kind of partway through that, I don't know, something about the muscularity, the athleticism of just like doing it when I didn't feel like it. I sort of came out on the other end and felt more hopeful. And without trying, I feel like probably a lot of my mental state in the last, few weeks has affected what I've turned out. But I don't think I've been conscious of that.
I assume I shouldn't assume. Are you actually all still actively working at the moment on plays? I know that Hannah has about 25 different deadlines. I just made it 25. Sorry, Hannah. Shut up, Jeremy. But you have. Do you still have? Are people still expecting you to hit dates and deadlines and have drafts in, or have things sort of softened and held back a little? Hannah, what about you?
Yeah, I think people are acknowledging that there's a pandemic on at this point. So that's good.
Yeah.
But I would say that but for them also, not just for me and my deadlines with them. But yeah, no, I think people that I'm working with, to be honest with you, a lot of my projects in the last few months have been in TV or film. And so there are deadlines on those contracts that are written into the contract quite formally and tied to money and tied to whether you're going to be fired or not. So no, there's been an expectation for sure that I continue to work. I mean, I think that there's less of a difference in a weird way for me because I do work from home. And I'm quite suited to solitude just temperamentally. So I don't find a big difference for myself. but I'll say, my son's home and he's 4, so I have about half the work time because I split the days with my husband. And so I am sort of at some pains to explain to people why I can't get them to work as quickly as I wish I could, because I have a kid bouncing on my head. So that's why.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah, bouncing. There's a few comments have come in. I'm just going to fly through a few of them just so you can see that people are listening.
Hi, Sarah.
There we go. Look at that, a powerhouse of playwrights.
Thanks.
I think that's just a gem.
Hello, Paula.
Paula! Hello, Sarah.
I think, Sarah, it would have been better if you'd put me in little brackets. There we go. Oh, I think Laura's talking about your acting it out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is an interesting thing. So yeah, I bet doing readings are difficult. So have any of you had experience in the last little while? I think maybe you have of now the very popular social gatherings just like this, so a Zoom or some kind of Skype meeting for readings.
I workshopped a musical on Zoom 2 weeks ago.
Oh my goodness!
And it was nutty. I didn't know how it was going to go down, and actually it was awesome in the end. It was a lot more work. Like writing the book was just kind of fine. I had like a live Google document that I could update, and the actors it would repopulate, and the actors would see me changing things on the fly, which is actually really great for me. For the music side of things, the composer and our MD had a lot more work. So actors were having to record themselves. We would sing tracks or send tracks. They would record themselves singing the tracks, send them. We'd mix it together, and then when we did a sharing, we pressed play, and so we all, including the actors, listened to the vocals. So it just meant that we couldn't dig in as much as we wanted to, but in the end, it was actually really satisfying. Strangely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm yet to attend. I must confess, I've been sort of holding on. I've been invited to a few readings in the last few weeks, and I haven't gone. I'm just nervous in case it doesn't go well technically. I don't know that I've got the ability right now to separate the technical difficulties with, I want to be able to make sure I can see beyond it, but that's my own issues. I want to play, I've got a little photo montage here because, obviously we've got photos of all your shows that have been at Neptune, and I want to move on to those in a second. So I thought I'd play a little montage. This is a few photos from each of your shows that have been at Neptune over the last year or two. So, and they're in no particular order. And so let's just take a little look. There we go. Did we miss any plays? I suddenly had a thought while I was watching that. Did we miss any? I don't think so. Good. Nobody's saying yes. Awesome. What was interesting, of course, is just having a photo montage. We can't hear your words. So I wish I could have an audio montage instead. But they were certainly, looking at those photos just now and earlier today when I first saw it, it was each one of those plays brings back some amazing memories for me of being in the theater, in our theater, and watching your work come to life. Anyone want to share their feelings as they shared in that process? I mean, I'll say at Neptune, but it doesn't have to be at Neptune. But as we're talking about those plays right now, Rose, what was it like coming to Neptune and seeing Low or Dear Mr. Wells performed? I think for the second time, right? This was the second production of it.
It was. I was. It was also the first. It was the second production of that show, but it was also the first time I was seeing something for a second time.
Right.
And I realized there that actually I didn't know my play yet.
Right.
That I came to learn so much more about it in that second production, and was fortunate enough to be able to be with Annie and the team through previews into opening, and I felt like I can be a lot, and they really embraced my presence, and so I felt like I got to be a real part of the process, which was I was so grateful for that. And in many ways, I kind of felt like that production was able to sort of get it in a way that a premiere just couldn't actually. There's so much happening for a play's premiere. I lost objectivity. The director of the premiere of the show, Andrea, we'd been working on that for 3 years. There was distance and time, and so when I stepped into Neptune with a new team, it just felt like it was a new play, and that was really a marvelous experience for me.
That's great. That's really cool to hear. So Hannah, with the two shows there, coincidentally, they were both produced by 2B Theatre, and then partnered or co-produced with Neptune. So were you you were probably involved before the shows, obviously before the shows hit Neptune, but I mean, were you around during the rehearsal process for those productions?
Yeah, well, and in particular, What a Young Wife Ought to Know was a premiere. So it was our first, like our first crack at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was there all throughout the process for sure. I love that space. I mean, and it's not a smart thing to say, but it's such a theater person thing to fall in love with spaces. I really like that backspace of yours.
Yeah.
It's really pretty. It's just, I like the acoustics, and I like the space and how people are not too far from the stage. I really fell in love with it during What a Young Wife Ought to Know, and then I like being back at it with Old Stock, Refugee Love Story. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, Old Stock, of course, sold the crap out of that space, and you couldn't get a ticket. So actually, same with Controlled Damage as well. I love that space too, and I know what you mean. What I'm really big on now as I go forward in my job is trying to persuade people that are maybe used to only going to Neptune's Fountain Hall stage, that the Scotiabank stage, as it's called, is as good, if not better, a venue for seeing some work, because it is so intimate. It's as beautifully comfortable and equipped. The same actors, the same directors, the same playwrights that we would put on the main stage, we put on Scotiabank. There's no two-tier system, and I'm really trying to tackle that head on, so that you could go and see an Ellen Denny play on either stage. There, from my mouth to anyway. Ellen, what about for you? And actually Andrea too. These were your first plays at Neptune as well. Ellen, you've had a long history with Neptune as an actor, and suddenly you've got a play playing there. So that would have been a quirky change of experience for you in the building.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it made the whole thing way less scary. As I often forgot that this big thing was happening, which was, my first production as a playwright, which I think if that had been in Toronto would have perhaps been a very overwhelming experience. But, I went to school in Halifax. Halifax is like a second home to me, and Neptune as well is where I cut my teeth as an actor. It's where I had my first equity gig as a performer. So I felt very safe there. And the team, you know, from administration to backstage, like all of those people are friendly faces now for me. So it was really special. And I also felt like they were kind of rooting for me. Like, look, you made this, you know, you made this change, you made this leap. And so it felt exciting to have people who had seen the before, you know, be on that step for me.
Andrea, what was the process like? I was involved in it, so I'm not going to tell the story, but what was the process like of getting your play to Neptune on our stage anyway? And then I think, Rose, I'm going to ask you a similar question in a second, but what was that process like briefly?
Well, it was okay. So it was a dream come true to have the play produced in Halifax because the play was about Viola Desmond, and I felt like the world premiere should be at Neptune Theatre. And you know, I sent it to you. You read it. You had a meeting with me in a Starbucks in Yorkville and said, "Pitch me." And I was like, I'm going to pitch you. I have produced a lot of my own shows, so I know how to do this. And here's my Excel spreadsheet on how much it would cost to produce this play in this space for this long. And I think you were impressed. And you said, okay, let me think about it. Send this to me in an email. And I did. And 6 months later, you wrote me and said, can I produce your play? And I said, yes. And it was, you know, it was a great experience. The show completely sold out before it opened, and I felt loved and welcomed in Halifax, even though I had never had anything produced there before. And it was a show that seemed to really resonate, and I'm really grateful for the experience. Thank you.
And just thank you. And just remind everyone that show was Controlled Damage, and it did sell out before it opened. And if I hadn't had another play coming in immediately after, we'd have probably extended it like we do on occasion. That's always the balancing act: is do you program it so it has the potential extension?
You just don't know.
You just don't know. 70% houses, but then this was packed, and I think it taught people a lesson that if they want to go and see a play, a good piece of theater, then maybe they should, you know,
buy the ticket.
Yeah,
I just want to put a request in, Andrea, that if you want to teach a class on what you just described, that beautiful pitch, I think there are many playwrights who would like to take that during the pandemic.
Yeah, and
I'll think about it.
Andrea and I, we spoke about this at a park. We actually were asked to come and talk about the process of Controlled Damage getting onto the Neptune stage, and one of the things I remember distinctly, and I think the same goes for the rest of you as well. For me, it's not only it's mainly about the script, but it's also about the person behind it and what it's going to be like connecting with you all and working with you, and what kind of a working relationship can we have, and how can it develop further? Not the script, the working relationship. So I mean, I think I've said to you all, in fact, I know I've said to you all, that I'm just sitting here waiting for the next available script from your desk, because there is no reason on earth where I wouldn't just fast track that thing, because your scripts have all worked on our stages. The audiences love them. We love producing them, and we had a great time with you. So that's one of the things that we talked about at that park thing. It's about the relationship. So when I met with Andrea, I think, who was it who facilitated that? It was
Andrew Lamb. Andrew Lamb, darling artistic director of Roseneath Theatre.
Yes,
Andrew Lamb.
I hope he got 10%, because he set up the he set up the meeting. He kind of pushed me into it a little. I was like, yeah, good. And he said, no, you really should. I said, okay. He said, I'll come too. I said, great. And then he just sat back and let you go. And I sat there going, wow, this person knows her stuff and is prepared, and the script is good, and the story is a no-brainer for my theater. So it all made sense. Ellen, tell the story of how Pleasureville suddenly came to be in my attention. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, I finished the very first draft of it while I was in Halifax, workshopping another piece, Could I Have This Dance, as a performer. And I finished the draft and I was excited about it. So I grabbed a bunch of cast members from that and we read it around a kitchen table, which is very East Coast appropriate.
Yeah.
And we laughed our heads off. And so I was feeling very bolstered by that. And so I marched into your office the next day and I dropped the script on your desk and I said, I've written this play and I've brought you a copy. And you asked the title and I said Pleasureville and you said, I love it. And you asked what it's about and I said a small town sex shop and you were like, I love it. And then and then it just left it with you. And then, you came to me and said, I'd like to try to do it. And yeah, felt like a miracle and it was very exciting.
Yeah. I think part of the Andrea's pitch, which you just touched on there, is the title. Because I'm also, as artistic director, I'm also, I guess, I have an eye on the producing or the selling of a show. So if it's got if it's at the point where it's got a title, and that also tells the hints at the story, and I think my audience will catch on to, which all of your shows do. And then a story that I think that we think at Neptune, because it's not just me that's reading plays. If we get together, we're like, yeah, that's kind of where we want our theater to be going. That's the direction. With Rose's play, do you want to tell that? Do you know that story? How I came across your play?
Yeah, Michelle Langille, who is our assistant director for the Toronto production, who is marvelous, I think sent you an email letting you know about it.
Yeah.
And you were in Toronto auditioning, right? You were auditioning for Mamma Mia?
I was.
Right?
Of all things, I was auditioning for Mamma Mia.
So you were auditioning for Mamma Mia all day, and then you came to see Lo in the evening, and I think it was our closing that you came to.
Yeah.
And if I'm being like perfectly honest, the time in Toronto, that the run of that show was like physically painful for me. I felt like it was just very hard to unleash that and to see it. And on opening night, I thought I was gonna like party, and instead, like, my shoulders were up to my ears, and I went home at like 11:30 and ate French fries and just like cried. It was not a pleasurable time. And that was partially the subject matter and my personal relationship to it. But I just remember you coming up in the theater, and so I didn't know what people felt about it. I felt like, do people hate this? And I think I thought everyone hated it all the time. And even if people told me they liked it, I thought they were lying. And so when you came up, I knew that you weren't lying. And you were like, I mean, it was shortly after that we knew it was going to be happening. And it felt like a dream, actually.
Yeah, I came after a long day of auditions. I was auditioning until 6. So and it was on the other side of Toronto. I came over in a taxi, grabbed a quick bowl of soup in the restaurant downstairs. When I got upstairs, and I must admit, I didn't want to see a play that night. I needed to go back to my hotel room and get ABBA songs out of my head. Which is a sentence I never thought I'd say. And when I walked into the space, they had very kindly saved me a seat. And it was right in the middle of a bank of seats. And my name was on the seat on a big piece of white paper, and people were staring at this piece of paper, and I had to like shuffle in, and I was like, who's that guy? Oh, nobody. Okay. So I sat there feeling physically exhausted, and then thinking, what am I going to see? I didn't know you. I didn't know the play. And I was like, oh. I knew the subject matter. I knew it was going to be an intense night. I assumed. And then I just sat up like this, and I didn't lean back in my seat for the whole play. And by the end of it, I knew that the plays that I was planning to put in next season, I had to add a slot to add your play into that season, because I wanted it in the studio that very year, which I think it was my first season. And I wanted it to be part of my first season to sort of show the direction. So that's the impact that you've all had on me. Hannah, I think I told you that last fall I got to see your play, the Russian play, at the Shore Festival. And I mean, I loved everything I saw at the Shore Festival last year. I saw about 4 shows, I think, in 2 days. But that lunchtime slot of your play, it was, did you see that production of it?
No.
I don't expect, I wonder if you happened to catch it. I know, I'm sure you didn't, but it was beautifully directed. But what she had done with your script was so honorable, and the words were just held, and the characters were just held by this incredibly creative direction. And so what I've seen with the productions of all your plays, at Neptune as well, is I've noticed that the directors that have worked on them have all also been totally invested in your words. Hannah, do you ever have is it part of your world to have a say in who gets to direct a play? Do you have like some kind of right of, does that happen? I don't know.
Well, not for, I mean, I wouldn't, I mean, listen, I didn't have say for the Russian play at Shaw, but coincidentally, Diana Donnelly, who directed that production, was in my class at National Theatre School and one of my close friends there. So I love her, like she's family. So I'm happy to hear that she directed it well, and she, screamed me down about not seeing the production.
Oh, did she? Oh, sorry.
And she did. And, I kept being like, I have a 2-year-old. I can't, I'll leave him. Like, you want me to just put him in the closet with dog food? Like, what do you want? I cannot leave.
Just tell her you sent me instead. I was I ripped it back.
But I was so happy to hear, was super happy to hear. And I like to have a hand in, I like to collaborate pretty closely with directors when that's available and when the director is interested in that, just because it's so much more interesting to me to create something where there's a synthesis between the words and the images that are occurring on stage. Yeah. So I do that when I can.
That was a picture of another production of the Russian play, I believe. I managed to squeeze one in. We are so out of time. As always, I could just talk for hours because I feel like I just get going and start to want to talk more. Have any of you got any workshops or readings that people can actually listen to or tune into coming up?
Tomorrow I'm going to do a little reading with Soul Pepper Theater Company. They do this really cool series called Fresh Ink. Yeah. And it's literally that. It's different playwrights every week on Fridays at 4:30. 4:30 Toronto time. Yeah. And we just read, 10 minutes each from something that we're currently working on. So it's kind of like messy and lovely, and Wayne Mengesha and Frank Cox O'Connell and Guillermo Verdecchia are the hosts, and it's a lovely conversation.
Awesome. Are you all going to send me a script to read at some point? He said, hopefully. Sounding kind of pathetic. Okay, thanks.
I have like Act 1, Scene 1 completed of my play, and now I'm working on Scene 2. So
whenever you're ready. I know.
Slowly, it's very happening slowly.
So because the interesting thing for me right now is as we hit May, in my annual schedule, Annie Valentina and I would normally at the end of May make our list. We have all of the submissions, and people have been sending scripts, and the scripts we already know about, and the scripts that are coming down the pipe, and we divide up duties, and we go off and read scripts for essentially June, July, and then come back together and start to formulate the next season, right? So I don't know what's happening. I don't know whether to go and plan a season. It's all very strange. We will plan a season. We'll have a season. But so I look forward to reading whatever any of you send me ever, and also getting to see your work. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate your time. I know that it is precious. I'm just going to say goodbye to everyone, play our closing sequence. Hang tight for a second, you four. Thanks for watching, everyone. And tomorrow night, we are going to talk to a whole bunch of crisis content creators. And I've covered Jordan Bell's face with a logo. Look at that. Doesn't matter. Forgive me. That is the show. We've got actually a surprise guest coming in as well. We're talking to people who are taking the bull by the horns and creating some music, song, and entertainment for people who are stuck at home by people who are stuck at home. So that's tomorrow. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. And we're all going to wave goodbye just to end the show because I realized I didn't give you a chance. Thanks for being here.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great seeing all of you.